The SEC just announced the scheduling for all teams in the conference, but of course, this is a Gator channel, so we're only focusing on the Gators here. Man, this man, I think the I think the SEC wanted to, timing wise, they wanted to make Florida schedule. They wanted to see if Florida schedule can be a little bit tougher than it was for Florida this year. And granted, Florida was only expected to win 4.5 games, but I think the SEC, in terms of the way they formatted the schedule, makes last year makes this schedule for 2025 maybe even tougher than the one Florida just got done with, and that's saying something because Florida had like what 8 teams in the preseason top 25 before 2024 season started. But here we're gonna break it down right now. So Florida has their 2025 schedule. They have Long Island Sharks and USF to start off the first 2 weeks. Those should be victories right then and there. Florida just has more talent than all of those teams, and it's a program in the fourth year of a head coach. And Florida just landed another nice recruiting class, Billy Napier's best recruiting class yet. So there's no excuse for them to lose to Long Island and USF. But then that's when things get tough. Their next 2 games are on road, even though one road environment is way tougher than the other one. They're going to be on the road at LSU after that USF game. That's the first conference game of the year for the Gators, and that's, in my opinion, Billy Napier's biggest road test in his career by far. And then the following week afterwards is going to be a rematch of the beatdown the Canes gave the Gators to start this past season. They're going to be on the road at Miami the following week after. Now, being on the road at Miami is not the same as being on the road at LSU because Hurricane fans don't even show up for Miami football games, even when their team is 10-2, as you saw this year. If you look at the Wake Forest game, which is Miami's final home game of the season, the fan base left a lot of empty seats out there. Miami fans just don't show up. And so it's not going to be a raucous environment, but also Miami is going to be losing a lot of players that were big contributors for them on both sides of the ball, and they're probably going to be making a change at the defensive coordinator position. So it's going to be a different Miami team next year. But this then after that they have a bye week. This isn't a win loss record prediction. This is just me breaking down the schedule releasing. And then after they play Miami, they're going to have a bye, and then they're coming back at home against the Texas Longhorns. It's the first time the Texas Longhorns will ever play in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium ever. And then the following week after Texas, they're going to face Texas's rival, not Oklahoma, but the Texas A&M Aggies. They'll be on the road. Texas A&M obviously demolished Florida earlier this year. It's going to be the third year in a, it's no, excuse me, the third time in 4 years these teams are going to face each other. They faced each other this past September. They're going to face each other next year, and they faced each other in 2021. They also faced each other in 2020 as well. So the SEC, for some reason, has been very committed to having Texas A&M and Florida play each other, and neither fan base, both Gators and Aggies, are really excited to play each other. But it is what it is. They're facing the Aggies, and then the following week after, they get the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Florida has won their last 2 matchups against Mississippi State, both of which were in the road at Starkville. This one's going to be in the Swamp. The last time the Mississippi State Bulldogs were in the Swamp, it was Urban Meyer's final year, 2010, and it was Dan Mullen leading the Mississippi State Bulldogs to a victory on the road at the Swamp. That's the last time the Bulldogs played Florida in Gainesville. And then they're going to get their second bye week. And then after that, see, it's the same format, and the scheduling for Florida was the same format as it was last year. 4 games bye week, 3 games bye week, and then finish off the final 5 games. And then, of course, after that second bye week, they're going to get the Georgia Bulldogs in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. It's the traditional rivalry that they face every year. This is the final year they're going to face in Jackson. They're going to face each other in Jacksonville for a couple of years because of renovations that are being done to the Jaguar Stadium. So the next 2 years afterwards, they're going to play in Tampa, and then they're going to play in Atlanta because the Jaguars are going to have their stadium renovated, and then in 2028 they're going to go back to playing their games in Jacksonville. So yeah, I don't know why they couldn't just play each other on campus, but oh well. And then after the Georgia game, they're going to be on the road at Kentucky. Florida has not won on the road at Kentucky since 2019. That was the Kyle Trask debut where Felipe Franks got hurt. And Kyle Trask came in, and the rest is history because Kyle Trask became a very prolific passer and a prolific player for the Florida Gators afterwards, and saved Florida's 2019 season and was a Heisman finalist in 2020, the year Florida had that historically great offense. Kentucky's going to want revenge because they lost to Florida for the first time and since 2020, and they got blown out pretty bad. Kentucky fans, they sell out for Florida because the last two, because Florida had this infamous 31-year win streak over Kentucky. So anytime Kentucky has Florida on the road, fans are gonna their fan base is gonna sell out and pack that stadium. They pack the stadium in for Florida more than they do for their actual rivals. Louisville, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, South Carolina. When the Gators are in town, Kentucky fans are at their most rabid. And then after Kentucky, they're going to be on the road at Ole Miss, at Hotty Toddy in Oxford, Mississippi. They're going to Ole Miss is going to be probably has this game circled as a revenge game because Florida beating Ole Miss last year is what knocked Ole Miss out of the playoff. And I'm pretty sure Ole Miss, if Florida handles their business and actually produces a very good football team, are going to want to exact revenge. I know Lane Kiffin's probably going to want revenge, and I know he's going to troll Florida in the process because there's been a social media war between the Gators football program and Lane Kiffin over the last few years. They're going to want revenge. Ole Miss will not be having Jackson Dart. This past year was his final year of eligibility. So Austin Simmons, who at one point was a Florida Gator commit and was projected to not only sign at Florida, but reclassify to 2023, but he ended up doing that for Ole Miss. So it's going to be interesting to see how Austin Simmons' dad publicly admitted that Florida's pursuit of DJ Lagway is what swayed his son away from UF because he probably figured it was going to hurt his son's chances to play. Well, this time you get to see what DJ Lagway and Austin Simmons matchup looks like. And then the final two games here, this one to me is, I think Florida's final 5 games are the toughest stretch by far. But these final 2 games right here, Tennessee and Florida State. So 2 of Florida's 3 biggest rivals, the 3 biggest rivals for Florida are obviously Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida State. 2 of Florida's biggest rivals back-to-back weeks to end the season. Tennessee on the 22nd of November, and then Florida State, of course, on Rivalry Saturday. Man. Now, that's to me that Tennessee a week before Florida State makes that Florida State game much tougher than what I was thinking before we found out what the season was going to be like. I still think Florida can beat Florida State because Florida State is in a flux right now and they're making so many different changes after having an atrocious year that they had. But having Tennessee right before the Florida State game, having a big rivalry like that, playing big rivals like that back-to-back weeks can have a team mentally drained the following week after. And Florida State is pissed off at Florida for planting the flag on them 2 weeks ago. So they're going to have this game circled for revenge, and they're going to have this game. They're going to want to probably do the same to Florida this week. So man, this is a very tough schedule. I actually think the final 5 game stretch this year is harder than last year because at least with last year, Florida had 2 home games and they were able to pull off some big wins heading into the Florida State game. And, they were riding high off of emotion. But right here, having Tennessee in what's going to be a very tough competitive game and probably an emotional game right before your other big rival, that's a very tough ask for a football team. And you're on the road at Ole Miss, who's going to want revenge on you for beating them and knocking them out of the college football playoffs. So that 3 game stretch to me on paper appears to be tougher than the 3 game stretch for Florida last year. Now, granted, that's because it's easy for me to say that now in hindsight. Florida State being way worse than what anybody expected. LSU falling out of the college football playoff race and not being as good as what they were expected. Ole Miss having that disappointing loss and knocking them out of the college football playoff race. That's probably that probably helps what's the word I'm looking for? The perception of the schedule. There you go. I was struggling to find my words there. The perception of the schedule. And that is a very tough ask for the Gators. And, Kentucky, again, like I said, the fan base hates Florida. So those final 5 games right there, and you got Georgia, of course, that's a very tough stretch of games to end, heading to end the season for Florida. But what helps is that they're going to have DJ Lagway coming back in year 2 of the offense. They're going to have Trey Wilson or Eugene Wilson III in full coming back. You have Caleb Banks returning as well. I don't know what other key contributors for Florida this season might be coming back. It's you got some key returning players last year. You know, Lagway, Ball, Trey Wilson, and Caleb Banks, and you have Jordan Castell, and you're going to have Pop Howard come back. You may have Shamar James coming back. He is a true junior, but I think there's a chance he may want to return and try to, help build this team and have this team help come back and continue the progression that they have made. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the offensive line. There's some key starters that could potentially leave. Austin Barber is draft eligible along with Jake Slaughter and Damian George Jr. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon is in his final year of eligibility. So it's a lot of time between now and the start of the season next year to see how Florida is going to project wise and how they stack up to the rest of their teams scheduling. So it's a tough 2025 schedule, but hey, Florida was projected to win 4.5 games this year and they won 7. So, potentially 8 if you include the Gasparilla Bowl coming up. But I think Florida should win that one pretty easily. So there you go. So we'll see how Florida heads into 2025. We'll have a lot more information when spring comes around, when summer comes around, and when fall camp comes around. So we'll see where it goes from here. Thanks for listening.